Hey everybody, Caleb Mackey here once again. After giving it some thought from my first video, I thought that I would like to make these little segments that I make for YouTube called Life's Little Golden Nuggets. Just because I believe that no matter how difficult life is, no matter how mundane, no matter how upsetting, there's always something that can be found that's just a little bit good or a little bit better. And I love being able to say that as a therapist to my clients, saying, hey, look for the gold. Don't always focus on the problem. And today, the little golden nugget that I would like to share is from my experience of reading the book Frankenstein. And it is a classic. I actually had never read it before, but that's okay because, better late than never. And I found it very intriguing. I've so far read a couple of other classics, and this one so far has struck me the most. And there are just a few things that I really wanted to share that's just the little gold nuggets of information that I thought would be meaningful to share. And they just come straight from the book, so I've quoted the dialogue in my journal here. And it starts off with this. I now also began to collect the materials necessary for my new creation. And this was to me like the torture of single drops of water continually falling on the head. Every thought that was devoted to it was an extreme anguish, and every word that I spoke in allusion to it caused my lips to quiver and my heart to palpitate. I thought of a lot of my clients when I read this part, because the way that we live our life does create the results that we have in front of us. Not to the extent that we control every factor, mind you, but we do influence it a lot. And sometimes, whether by our own choosing or by the law of unintended consequences, what we create around us, or I guess what we help create around us, we were not prepared for. Frankenstein is the same way. When he first made his monster, I kind of ascribe it to somebody who they strive for a goal and they work so hard at it every day. They're up for numerous hours. They lose sleep, they lose eating, they lose social connectivity, and they finally achieve the goal after years of practice, study, whatever have you. And as he stared at the finished result, he kind of went, now what? Because what he saw in front of him did not please him very much. Or it did a little bit, but more of it was like, oh my goodness, what did I do? And, and so here he's talking about the process of, as he's making a new creation, that as he thinks about it and every time that he speaks to it, it just does not cause a good sensation or experience in his body or in his mind. I feel like this relates to my clients that I see because many of them live a life in a way that they're trying to do better and they're trying to fight against their trauma and they're trying to do whatever. And for some reason, no matter how good it works, they still feel like it's single drops of water continually falling on the head, every thought devoted in extreme anguish, and every word they speak in allusion to it, causing their lips to quiver and their heart to palpitate. Another part that came very soon after in the book said, I enjoyed this scene, and yet my enjoyment was embittered both by memory of the past and the anticipation of the future. For anybody who's a therapist out there, or even a doctor, you hear about all the past experiences of our patients and clients. But I definitely know as a therapist, I see that. And for anybody like a psychologist, psychiatrist, other therapists, social workers, absolutely, we see this a lot. But I am a blasted tree. The bolt has entered my soul, and I felt that I should survive to exhibit what I shall soon claim to be, a miserable spectacle of wretched humanity, pitiable to others and intolerable to myself. That really struck me to say, my clients talk a lot like that. They live like that blasted tree where the bolt has entered their soul. They consider themselves, or they act like a miserable spectacle of wretched humanity, pitiable to others and intolerable to themselves. And it's so hard to see people like that. And it's such a deep, dark place that they go. It just really spoke to me to help me remember that even in the classic like Frankenstein, these experiences are all still very familiar to us today. It doesn't change because humanity doesn't change that much, at least from a couple hundred years ago, from when this book was written. And then the last part was a couple of pages later. Well, actually, there's 2 more parts. The next part is, in this manner, I distributed my occupations when I first arrived. But as I proceeded in my labor, it became every day more horrible and irksome to me. It was indeed a filthy process in which I was engaged. During my first experiment, a kind of enthusiastic frenzy had blinded me to the horror of my employment. My mind was intently fired on the consummation of my labor, and my eyes were shut to the horror of my proceedings. But now I went to it in cold blood, and my heart often sickened at the work of my hands. Clients are very similar to that. They live their lives more blindly, and it just doesn't work well, or it just does well enough for them. But then when they come to therapy and they realize how traumatic it's been, or how horrible it's been for them, and then they're trying to do different, healthier things that are harder to do, it kind of sheds the scales off their eyes and pulls the blinds back. And it's so hard to handle that and to do it without feeling depressed, without feeling hatred, or just like the past, not this one, but the past quote about a miserable spectacle of wretched humanity. And then the last part was, I shuddered to think that future ages might curse me as their pest, whose selfishness had not hesitated to buy its own peace at the price, perhaps, of the existence of the whole human race. Yes, he had followed me in my travels. He had loitered in forests, hid himself in caves, or taken refuge in wide and desert heaths. And he now came to mark my progress and claim the fulfillment of my promise. Day to day, the monster follows people. The trauma can follow clients. Our own past, our own problems, whatever it is that we consider. I like how they put it in the idea of he followed me. The wretch, as Frankenstein calls his monster, or we say Frankenstein's monster, it follows him everywhere. All of these things helped show me and remind me about how important it is to work with clients like this. And to be able to see it written in a different way, in a classic viewpoint, it really opened my eyes in a different way to a more deep understanding of the pain that people experience. And it humbles me to say, Caleb, that is not my job to fix everybody. My job is to simply be with them as they wrestle with it. Just as everyone else out there who is in the helping profession, or I really encourage people who, though you may not be a helping professional, that every time that you act towards someone in kindness and compassion with an active listening ear, you are also being part of that change. But it does mean that you have to be aware that monsters are following that person everywhere. More than likely, especially if it's long-time trauma or other issues like that. And so in closing, Frankenstein really helped reveal to me the deep process of my clients in a different way, and how, though I know that I may not ever help them actually fix the problem, I can encourage them to continue the fight and to continue the process of healing and to be able to move on with their life, hopefully, even if it's just for the 1 hour I have with them in session. Or for you guys, whatever work that you do, every time that you are helping someone alleviate their burden, you are helping slow down the process of that monster and helping them feel just a little bit less of a miserable spectacle of a wretched humanity, and maybe something more of worth, value, and importance. Well, that's it for today. Thank you all so much for your time. This was great for me. I hope it was fun for you, and can't wait for the next video. See you later.